You're listening to the MindPod Network. It's all happening, listeners. Please consider supporting this podcast by going to zachleary.com and using the Amazon portal on the homepage to buy all of your stuff while also supporting this show. It's all happening. 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 It's all Hello, friends. Welcome to the podcast, episode 122 of the It's All Happening with Zach Leary podcast. That's me. I am your host. This week on the podcast, we don't have a guest. It's just going to be me talking about some very pertinent issues for maybe about 30 minutes, about half the length of a normal episode. I've only done this once before, well over a year ago. And I've had a few requests to do it again. And so this is going to be it. I'm going to call the podcast The State of the Union. Or should I say the State of the Union, according to Zach Leary? Whatever you want to call it. Within this format, I'm going to take a couple stories that happened during the week and riff on them, expand on them, dig into them a little bit. Yes, I know. It's very, very, very exciting. Thank you for that wonderful applause. So this podcast is being recorded on Wednesday, July 18th. Now, July 18th isn't especially notable in and of itself, but this day, the day after the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, happens every year, is the only day on the calendar year where there is not a single sporting event within the four major sports: basketball, hockey, baseball, or football. Not a single game is being played. Within the American experience, I find that to be a very interesting cultural phenomenon and worth noting. Every year when it happens, I take pause and celebrate the blackout of American sports. More notably, this week, what happened in the world of politics transcends politics altogether, and that is the press conference between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. This is, of course, following the historic summit between the two leaders. And during the press conference, when referring to Russian interference, Russian meddling with the 2016 presidential election, Trump says they think it's Russia. I don't see any reason why it would be. Moving beyond the political punditry that has swept this nation the past week, looking past Democrat or Republican, past conservative or liberal, and trying instead to focus on the collective experience that has been affected as a result of the narrative this administration espouses, perhaps more accurately, the narrative that the man himself creates. This goes right into the heart of what the definition of telling the truth is and what it isn't. It goes right into the heart of the ideals that are supposed to be upheld within the office of the American presidency. I'm not saying that the previous administrations haven't had their fair share of lies and deceit, obviously. I'm not saying holding the presidency up on a pedestal, but I am saying this is an entirely new level of reckless authoritarianism styled hubris. We can now see that Trump is attracted to world dictators that have torched anything that stood in their way in the quest for total control. Compromise, healthy debate, ideological challenges are met with assassinations, propaganda, and total megalomaniacal behavior in this style of leadership. Clearly, Trump is attracted to this way of rule. So much so that he would rather have a cozy and friendly relationship with someone like Vladimir Putin, one that takes his word on events over the word of his own intelligence agencies. These agencies are made up of people who work for him and are guided by the mandate of hunting down enemies of the state. He contradicted all of their findings on the matter of the Russian election meddling and instead sided with Vladimir Putin. Really?
Oh, no!
So after many questions were asked and the cat was already out of the bag and the room was sitting there just in complete and utter disbelief, the final question was given to the reporter from the Associated Press. Take a listen.
Okay.
The final question from the United States will go to Jonathan Lemire from the AP.
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe? My second question is, would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
So again, this is the final opportunity for Trump to course correct. The reporter from the AP is setting it up for him, is giving him a softball so he can turn this whole ship around. And this is his response.
So let me just say that we have two thoughts. You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentleman that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails gone, just gone. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily.
Notice the immediate pivot and attempt to change the subject, but he continues.
Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee? I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it out on social media. Where is the server? I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. But I have confidence in both parties.
So it's well known that politicians, when being asked a very direct question, play a game of dodgeball. They avoid the question and steer the conversation into another direction should they not want to deal with that particular subject. But what happened here was a whole different level. When the reporter from the AP asked him the question, he started talking about Hillary Clinton's emails and the server. And the server and the server and the server and how he wants to see the server. And he's just trying to once again evade the conversation by placing blame on other parties who also did the same thing. Well, I didn't do it. Maybe I did, but Clinton also did it. Obama also did it. And then at the very end, he says that he has faith in both parties. I do want to point out that this is an attempt at investigative journalism in the style of an op-ed piece, sort of, kind of like a radio show, that within the last 2 days since this press conference, and as a result of the collective outrage over these comments, that Trump has walked back his comments considerably. Very considerably, which even makes it more outrageous. But just to be fair, I have to point that out. It doesn't change the fact, however, that all of this is so mind-numbingly weird. It is very, very, very confusing, and it is very shocking no matter what side of the fence you are on. And it's confusing because one wonders why. Why would he care so much? It's not like Russia is a trading partner on the global scale of China. to where we need all of their tariffs and all their back and forth to be, in alignment with the American economy. Why would he do this, right? So there are several ways you can look at it. And one of the issues that comes to the top of the surface is that under no circumstances does Trump want to admit that he didn't win the election fair and square, that the results of the election cannot be called into question. His ego is so insecure and it is so petulant and childish that if there is there any mounting evidence that the election was rigged, even in his favor, it's still not a good thing. And take a listen.
There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it. People are being brought out to the fore. So far that I know, virtually none of it related to the campaign. And they're going to have to try really hard to find somebody that did relate to the campaign. That was a clean campaign. I beat Hillary Clinton easily. And frankly, we beat her. And I'm not even saying from the standpoint we won that race. And it's a shame that there can even be a little bit of a cloud over it. People know that. People understand it. But the main thing, and we discussed this also, is zero collusion. And it has had a negative impact upon the relationship of the two largest nuclear powers in the world. We have 90% of nuclear power between the two countries.
So there's the bit about the election. You can see that he, under no circumstances, is going to admit, even if the evidence comes from his very own intelligence agencies, that the results of the 2016 election are somewhat questionable. But he also says within that statement that there's no collusion. Find me one person tied to my campaign that had anything to do with this. Well, do you remember Paul Manafort? The chairman of the Trump campaign. Prosecutors claimed that Manafort misled federal authorities for years about his lobbying work in the U.S. for Ukrainian politicians before he joined the Trump campaign. Yes, this isn't directly related to tampering with the election results, but the chairman of Trump's campaign is sitting in jail right now as a result of the Mueller allegations. Trump claims that Manafort only worked for him for 45, 50 days or something, regardless of the actual amount of time. He was the head of Trump's campaign. He was the campaign manager. The campaign manager is basically like the head coach or whatever. Additionally, Trump now has this pattern of behavior that really exemplifies or is demonstrative of him seeking validation in the form of being the savior of the Western world. Make America great again, with the implication being it is presently not great because of the actions of previous administrations, and he's going to come in and save the day on his gold-plated toilet in the airplane or whatever. So by doing that, by making it seem that relationships with foreign governments that were previously contentious or have a long history of animosity, by making it seem that things are now cozy and warm and friendly, that he has changed the course of American foreign policy.
But our relationship has never been worse than it is now. However, that changed as of about 4 hours ago. I really believe that.
He really believes that, and by throwing in those little I really believe that offhand, spontaneous, seemingly sincere comments, it's sort of like this NLP technique that gets people into this mindset of being sucked into his narcissistic personality disorder that is very, very malleable with the truth. All of these elements together, the constant shifting of the narrative, pointing to the Hillary Clinton campaign and the servers and the emails, and making himself out to be the savior of American foreign policy, and the Mueller campaign being a complete witch hunt, is now growing very, very tired, and is growing very, very predictable and obvious. And it is creating a real discord in America. Moving beyond the theatrics of political theater and the global stage that the 21st century 24-hour news cycle perpetuates, that goes on and on and on and on, and to some extent I am perpetuating that now as well. In this podcast, I can admit that freely, but moving beyond that, the implications here of what happens as a result of this constant pattern of behavior, of what happens within the mindset of Trump's electoral base, is very, very troubling, because he has created this cult-like demagoguery, authoritarian presence within his base that has no relationship with the truth at all, that has no relationship with facts. And it has gotten so far out there that people don't even mind that he's lying. In some cases, they know he's lying and they don't even care. They know that this is just part of the game, that if he is lying for the betterment of the cause, if he's lying for the betterment of the advancement of a white nationalist supremacy to reign supreme in America once again, it doesn't matter. None of these facts matter. And if anybody is challenged, gets challenged on them, the basic soundbite is just, well, the liberal media is creating this conspiracy against, the base, and you can't believe a thing that these people say. It's all lies. And that is just very, very sad, because it goes beyond liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat. And as far as I understand it, this base is one of their core fundamental principles is to be patriotic, is to be America first, is to really celebrate the ideals and values of the American experiment. And nothing is more anti-American than what Trump did with Vladimir Putin this week. Some are even using the word treason. It's gone that far. He is undermining the very system, the very democratic stability of the American experience, just so he can side with a Russian dictator because he likes him. So our relationship with the truth, our relationship with the facts, if they become this loose, granted they've always been loose and politicians have always lied, but if it gets this far out there, we're in for a real ride. And not to mention, look, I'm not the most patriotic person in the sense that the office of the presidency reigns supreme and every word he says must be cherished. But I do recognize that when the president comments on events that are happening in America, that is sometimes the word, that's the record, that is the official record. And now, because of this ongoing behavior and distortion of facts and policy and of just basic human decency, it doesn't really matter what this guy says. It's kind of page 2 news. It's not the official record. It's just, it kind of goes in the gutter with the rest of his tweets. That's a really strange phenomenon. So, yes, I encourage you all to watch the press conference that happened on Monday, and also, to be fair, watch the rebuttals that have happened over the last couple of days as he's tried to walk back some of these comments. We're now going to turn to the world of e-commerce, specifically Amazon. This week was Amazon Prime Day, which is the day when Amazon Prime members can get outrageous deals on all merchandise across the board. The 2018 Amazon Prime Day set a new sales record for the company. For most of you, that's probably not really surprising given how often you shop at Amazon and how convenient it is. I know I do. Amazon said this year's Prime Day was the biggest global shopping event in Amazon's history, with consumers purchasing more than 100 million products. Sales, even when adjusted for the 36-hour period, surpassed Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and 2017's Prime Day. What does it mean when something like this happens? There is certainly no turning the Amazon juggernaut around. I wouldn't be so naive to suggest that there was. But in order to consider the implications, I want to turn to a tried and true case study. And that one is Walmart and its effect on the American experience. This past week, I had the unfortunate pleasure of going to a Walmart when I was on my way to Ojai. And there is no Walmart in Los Angeles, kind of in LA proper. It's in the outskirts or in the Inland Empire or, different places, but not really here in Los Angeles. So I don't really go to one. And when I do, I am reminded at the example that the leadership Walmart has taken in destroying the experience we once knew as Main Street America. Now, there is no escaping the fact that everything changes, everything is impermanent, crying out for nostalgia, for the way that things used to be, is a futile exercise. And I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm not even suggesting that going back to the way that it was is the best idea. I'm just making the point and illustrating the facts. In small town America or even mid-city America, you'd walk down the main street and there was Bob's Sporting Goods or, Jack's Vacuum Cleaners or whatever. When Walmart really expanded its product line to have everything inside of its brick and mortar locations, all of those businesses were basically destroyed in small town America, and Walmart just ate them up and beat them out because of price. Simply put, their ability to buy large quantities of products from China at a very, very low price makes it impossible to compete. Now, this, of course, is the law of supply and demand, and every business tries to do the same thing. So this is not a commentary on the ethics of business. This is just a commentary on how our behavior, when centralized and turned into this gigantic frenzy to get the lowest price, no matter the implications, what that actually does to the fabric of this place we live in and how we need to look ahead towards the future. So when Walmart really expanded and became the number one brick and mortar store, terrible things happened. And when all of these stores closed, a lot of these people had to go work at Walmart. And as you can find out for yourself, just Google it. Walmart is a terrible place to work, gives terrible benefits, pays a terrible wage, et cetera, et cetera. So where Walmart is the most popular is also where it's done the most damage. Very, very interesting phenomenon, much like the Trump phenomenon. the people that vote for Trump are the ones getting screwed the most. Why does that happen over and over and over again? So turning back to Amazon, am I saying that Amazon is the Walmart of the online world? I don't know. Many people have suggested that, and perhaps they are. But what I am suggesting is that each one of us does have the opportunity to play the role that we want to play. How we spend our money, how we choose to infuse the economy by spending the money that we earn in the way that we want, is one of the few mechanisms of control. It's one of the few mechanisms of influence that we truly have. If, for whatever reason, millions of people banded together to boycott Walmart for something or Amazon for something, their profits would plunge overnight. It's obvious, but these things rarely happen. I am suggesting that there is a way to infuse some equanimity into the equation here. There's no stopping the juggernaut of Amazon or the juggernaut of Walmart, but do we have to buy 100% of our stuff from Amazon and have it shipped to our doorstep without leaving the house? Instead, is there a way, now and then, not all the time, but to support a local business made up of some really cool people that are trying to eke out an existence for themselves in a creative and different way that doesn't rely on these empires that are dictating the very way we shop, consume, and process all of the world that is around us. That'll do it for this episode of the State of the Union with Zach Leary on the It's All Happening podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune back in soon for another episode of the show with another great person. Thank you.